Greetings. Have you seen the movies about Shaolin monks? Tough guys in yellow clothes beat up enemies, run along walls, and even fly. But this is a movie, they can show anything, and what is the truth? Are the Shaolin monks really super cool, or are they just the director's invention? Let's figure it out together. Let's start with the main thing. Monks can't fly, and they can't read minds, walk on water, or kill with a glance. And yet, this does not diminish their coolness. Monks start training at the age of 4 to 5. Boys develop strength, flexibility, and endurance. It doesn't sound too impressive, but look at the methods. The boys hang from a tree curled up in a ring and do not serve only because they strain all the muscles in their bodies. It's fantastic. I'm terrified to even look at it. I'm afraid to imagine what the poor children feel. Then stretching, balance and strength exercises. Yes, it's all in a complex. The boy has to take a difficult unstable pose and stand in it as long as possible. Children sit down with a pistol and stand on one bent leg. They stand on poles dug vertically into the ground, holding a bowl of water on their heads. You probably think it's easy, but try to take this pose yourself and hold it for at least 20 minutes. But you need to stand perfectly straight, not tremble or sway. More or less trained athletes begin to tremble after 10 minutes. And children stand like this for hours on end on a log. Why do you have to abuse children like that? It's not just about physical fitness. The monks believe that mental stress fosters patience, perseverance, and humility in boys. But strength training is not the whole training program. The boys make fists on the makiwari. This is the name of a pole wrapped in straw. They train the main sets of punches, practicing them until they are automatic. The boys sit in the lotus position for hours, mastering the practice of inner concentration. Why? Firstly, it's a tradition, and secondly, it's meditation, which is a great way to train willpower. Exhausted from physical activity, the boys sit motionless in silence, with their eyes closed. But they must never fall asleep. The life of the little novices is very strict. They sleep in a common room on bunk beds. The toilet is located outside. The children do not have hot water in the shower. They wash only with cold water, both in summer and winter. You won't believe it, but this building doesn't even have heating. Winters in Shaolin are certainly not Siberian, but the temperature often drops below zero. I can't imagine how kids survive in such conditions. There are no maids in the children's part of the monastery, only an educator. The children cook their own meals, do their own laundry, and clean their rooms and the yard. The boys have no toys or computers. They use cell phones only to communicate with their families. The willpower and endurance of the young residents of the monastery are impressive. Look at their stern faces. The children look like little warriors. When their muscles are stronger, the boys move on to the next level. Now the exercises look downright scary. What do you think of this? And this is how the children usually work out. The program includes not only physical training, they learn the same subjects as in a regular school. In addition, the kids learn the basics of Buddhism. How do the boys manage everything? It's very simple. They wake up at 5 in the morning and go to bed at 10. Even with such a crazy schedule, the children have only an hour and a half of free time. But the boys devoted to practicing their techniques. As you can see, children are not spared in Shaolin. What then awaits adult novices? For adult monks, the training is extremely difficult. The day of a Shaolin novice begins at 5 a.m. Upon waking up, all the monks go out into the courtyard and meditate for 2 hours. This ritual is performed daily in any weather. The meditating monks are watched by 10 supervisors. Why? So that the guys don't fall asleep. If a monk does fall asleep, the overseer hits him with a pole on the shoulder. After such an awakening, the novice politely thanks the mentor for his help in meditation and returns to class. It's cruel, but the monks believe that this is the only way to instill discipline and respect for elders. After meditation, the monks move on to stretching. It looks cooler than the performances of circus gymnasts. These guys literally tie themselves in knots. The warm-up is over and it's time for breakfast. The monks eat only plant-based foods, greens, fruits and vegetables, noodles, tortillas, rice, soy cheese, and sometimes fish. Drinks include water, soy milk, or tea. Alcohol is strictly prohibited and, of course, no cigarettes. You can't exercise after meals. Novices use their time to good effect. They study sacred texts and pray. Then they begin training for strength and endurance. One of the most popular exercises looks like this. A monk stands in a horseman's stance, raises his hands with palms up and leans against a weight, holding it at head level. At first the weight is small, only 5 to 6 kilograms, then the weight increases. Each time the monk performs the exercise longer and longer. First 15 minutes, then half an hour, 2 hours. Experienced monks could hold a weight of over 100 kilograms for many hours. To strengthen the legs and backs, the monks performed exercises called the monks' pillars. At first, the novices stood in this position for hours, then increased the load, putting heavy stones on their legs and on their heads. Another extremely popular exercise in Shaolin is walking up the stairs. However, the monks crawl, leaning on their hands and toes. This exercise is called the creeping snake. At first, the novices rest their palms on the ground, then their fists, and at the end of the training with their fingers. We go to the gym to pump up our muscles. But for a Shaolin monk, an ordinary tree is enough. The monk wraps his arms around the trunk and strains all his muscles in an attempt to pull the tree out of the ground. The muscles should be kept tense for several minutes, gradually increasing the time to an hour. Such static exercises are surprisingly effective. The muscles are like steel after them. How do monks train fantastically strong punches and fingers? Very simply, they first hammer nails into a board, nails into the board with their bare hands, and then pull them out with their fingers. To practice a strong punch, the monks hit sandbags with their fists. When their hands get used to it, they replace the sand with pebbles, and at the end they pound a tree or stone with their fists. After such training, a monk can easily break a concrete slab with a single punch. Another striking exercise is designed to strengthen the neck muscles. At first, the monks stand on their heads, leaning on their elbows. Then they support their bodies by resting their fists on the ground. And finally, they stand only on their heads, with the top of their heads resting on the stone floor. A monk can stand in this position for hours. After such training, men are able to do incredible things. For example, they put a noose around their necks and hang in the air for up to half an hour without suffocating or losing consciousness. Why? Because the tense muscles in the neck do not allow the rope to pinch the throat and blood vessels. Now that the strength training is over, it's time for lunch and rest. They allocate only 1 hour for this, and then they get back to work. In the evening, the monks practice different fighting techniques. They train with weapons and unarmed with one opponent or with several. To practice the strength and speed of a punch, the monks perform an exercise called the palm of bright light. The novice lights a candle, moves away a meter and hits the air with his open palm. The task is very simple. You need to hit so hard that the airflow blows out the fire. Over time, the distance to the candle is increased to 1.5 to 2 meters. Another exercise that looks very simple until you try it. The monks hang a piece of paper on a string and try to punch it with their fingers to tear the thin paper. To tear thin paper, the novice strikes so fast that the movement is difficult to track. Just imagine the force of this blow. Such training lasts until 7 o'clock in the evening, after which dinner is served and the monks can rest. But in practice, novices continue training until late at night. Not because they have to, but because they want to achieve perfection. In this mode, monks live not for a year or two, but for decades. During this time, the body turns into a perfect weapon. It sounds intimidating, But in fact the Shaolin monks are very kind. The monastery's charter prohibits them from fighting for fun or for money. The only good reason to fight is self-defense or defense of the weak. Therefore, a true monk will never fight in the ring. But there are people who have never been monks and still use Shaolin fighting techniques. For example, the legendary fighter Ma Yulong, who took the pseudonym monk. In fact, Yulong was never a monastic novice, but for years he trained according to the original Shaolin method. This fighter is an excellent expert in Kung Fu, Wing Chun, Sanda and kickboxing. He also knows classical boxing, Muay Thai and wrestling. Yulong has fought 74 fights, winning 61 of them, 23 of them by knockout. And even such a master is not perfect. He still lost 12 fights. 5 of them by knockout, 1 fight ended in a draw. Solid statistics, right? For a long time, Yulong maintained an intrigue around his name. No one knew where this fighter came from. But the monk's nickname and fighting style hinted that this guy was really trained in Shaolin. In 2010, the monastery officially denied these rumors. Yulong had never been a monk and had not studied Shaolin. Despite this, the fighter uses traditional Shaolin Quan and has achieved impressive success. What would happen if a real monk entered the ring? The opponent will fall at the beginning of the fight. Although if you think about it, monks train to achieve perfection. They do not want to win, and humanism is a serious obstacle in the ring. MMA fighters have no such restrictions. They are ready to do anything to win. Who do you think will win in the ring? A Shaolin monk or a MMA legend? Make your bets in the comments and don't forget to like the video. If you liked the video, subscribe to the channel and click on the bell. We have a lot of interesting information in store.